The Torah in this week's Parsha describes a very interesting mitzvah, the mitzvah of Ir Nidachas. And the mitzvah of Ir Nidachas is about a city where most of the city has served Avodah Zarah, has served idols, where members of the city have convinced their brethren in the city to serve idols, and since most of the city has gone along with it, then the entire city is destroyed, all the property in the city is destroyed, and all the animals in the city are destroyed. And it seems to be that the Torah is saying that this city, there's no hope for the city. The city is done, and therefore the entire city must be completely erased. It's a very puzzling mitzvah. Is it really true that there's no hope? So the Gemara tells us that there never was an Ir Nidachas, and there never will be an Ir Nidachas, showing us that there is always hope. But why have this mitzvah? The Gemara tells us the reason why we have this mitzvah is Derosh v'kabel schar, that we get reward for learning about the mitzvah. And I think on a deeper level, the Torah is telling us that there are lessons that we can learn about this from this mitzvah and apply them to our own lives. And there are many mitzvos, there are many concepts that we can learn from this mitzvah. But what I want to highlight one of those lessons for you today. The halacha is that only if the majority of the city has sinned is the city destroyed. And on top of that, the people who convince the others to sin must be members of the city and not outsiders. And I think what the Torah is trying to highlight is the sense of community and the power of community. If there is external people, if there is an external pressure, external influence on the city, that influence is not going to last. And therefore the city is not destroyed. But if it's internal, if it's people from our own community, and they've already influenced the majority of the community, we no longer have that sense, that positive sense of community. The general atmosphere of the community is negative. Now there is no hope. And I think if you look throughout history, this is a theme that has played out many times. There were many Jews who were very, very observant Jews when they lived in Europe. When they came over to the United States, the general atmosphere was that here in America, we can't keep Shabbos. And therefore, many, many people succumbed to that pressure and stopped keeping Shabbos, or at least went to work on Shabbos. It shows the power of community, the power of the community that you live in. But if it works with a negative influence, how much more so will it work with a positive influence? That when we live in a community, a special community, a community filled with good people, a community with people who are all trying to help each other, then it will only have a positive effect on all of us, and there'll always be hope for us. We'll always be on a very positive track. The other halacha that I mentioned is that the influence must come internally. Because it's only when we're part of a community, it's only when we live together as a community that there will be a lasting influence. But if it's external, it won't have the same pressure. And again, just like that applies for the bad, it applies for the good as well. We as members of our community have a unique role in playing and influencing other members of our community. We as members of our community have a responsibility for our community. We live in a wonderful, beautiful community. And we all have to gain from the positive atmosphere that exists within our community. But we also have to accept that responsibility upon ourselves. And that unique responsibility that we have, that only we, not external members, not people from outside the community, even if they're very influential or very amazing people, but they can't have the same influence on our community that we have. They can't have that same negative influence, but more importantly, they can't have the same positive influence that we can have. I spent many years working in Jewish outreach, and the tool that I found most effective was not amazing classes, was not deep conversations with people, was not proving Judaism, but it was bringing them into a shul, was bringing them into a community that was warm and welcoming and open. And when people came to that community and felt that they were a part of that community, that was the greatest way to influence people. That was the greatest way to help people and inspire people, feeling part of a warm and welcoming community. So let's accept that responsibility upon ourselves. We're living in a difficult time. We're living in an unprecedented time. A time where the world is struggling and the Jewish people are no exception. The Jewish communities are struggling. And during this time, it is all the more important to reach out to our fellow brethren and sisters in our community, in our city, to help them, to see how we could assist them, to see how we can positively influence them. The lesson of the Irani Dachas was that members of a community create a certain atmosphere in the community, and when the atmosphere changes for the bad, then there's no hope for that city. But if that's true again for the negative, let's apply it, and let's make sure that the communities that we live in are full of positive influence, are full of holiness, are full of chesed, are full of kindness, are full with tzedakah, charity. And if we can create that beautiful atmosphere, even in times of social distancing, create that atmosphere of holiness, of kedusha, of spirituality, of chesed, of avodas Hashem, serving Hashem, then we have an incredible opportunity to help those around us, to inspire them, and to use this opportunity, even as challenging as it is, to be a time of growth and to be a time of coming closer to Hashem. Have a great Shabbos.